This podcast is part of the Michigan Sports and Entertainment Podcast Network. Go to michigansportsandentertainment.com for more great podcasts.
Look out, Larkin's wide open. There's the pass. He's in the clear. Scores! Dylan Larkin, and the Red Wings win it. Zadina near side. Hirose. Zadina wants it. He's got it. He shoots. He scores! Dylan Zadina, his first National Hockey League goal.
Yo, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to this week's episode of the Hockeytown Rundown. I'm your host, Chase Sussex, and I'm joined by Jay Croft. Say hi, Jay.
What's going on, everyone? How you doing? How's your week? Last 2 weeks, I should say.
Yeah, my last couple weeks have been good. We've had a really busy week, or these busy past couple weeks with the Red Wings. I know you said you wanted to start off today's episode. You saw the new Russian 5 movie, so why don't we jump to that and tell me what you saw there? Yeah, man, I lived through that, and it was pretty sweet to go see a movie about that kind of part in Red Wings history, and a lot of cool things that a lot of cool things that I didn't know about how they got those players to come over here, and I don't want to spoil it for anybody else. I know that it's definitely worth your time if you're in the Detroit area. I would highly recommend ponying up the $5 to $8 or whatever it costs to go see it. I saw it at a matinee in Monroe at Phoenix Theaters, so it's like at some different theaters that are smaller, I guess. So I don't think you're going to find it like at your MJRs or anything like that, but definitely try to go. I know Imagine Theaters has them, so if you have the chance to go, take someone with you. One of the cool things about the movie is that the director actually was on Darren McCarty's Grind Time podcast, and he was saying that he was saying that part of the proceeds from the tickets sold for the movie is going to be going towards helping Vladimir Konstantinov with his medical bills, which he still needs to this day. He still needs medical care for his injury from back when the car accident happened. So that's really, really cool. And I think that's one of the reasons why, they were able to get so many of the Russian guys to do it. It was pretty funny listening to the story, about how they were able to get Fetisov to do it, because he's pretty high up in Russia now in Russian hockey and everything. So to get him to spend some time doing it, I know that them helping out Konstantinov was a big part of that. So I don't know. It's definitely going to come out on iTunes and things like that. I don't know if they're going to get it on Netflix or whatever, but from what the directors were saying, they're definitely going to have widespread distribution digitally. But if you have a chance to go see it in the theater, go see it. You're going to learn a lot about the way that the Russian 5 came together. Lots of really sweet highlights. There's some real sad moments too. Obviously with the car crash, they talk about that for a bit. And just really makes you appreciate how awesome it was to be around when those teams were dominating back in the 90s and 2000s. So Chase, I know I don't know how much of that you were around for. I know you're younger than I am, but it was pretty special time in Red Wings hockey, and hopefully with the rebuild, we're gonna get back to seeing better days again. But that was a pretty special moment, so it was good. I definitely recommend people going to see it if you can. Yeah, so I wasn't around during that era, and I'm definitely not in the area of Detroit to go see the movie, unfortunately. So I'm hoping it hits some sort of DVD release or something where I could get the opportunity to see it. But I've only heard good things about the movie. So if you guys are, available to go see that, you guys should definitely go watch, because I've heard only good things, especially from Jay. Like he said, just gave a really good description of the movie. So yeah, you guys should go out and see that. So let's kind of dive into some of the more recent performances that we've had from the Detroit Red Wings. Even though we kind of mentioned that the Red Wings are sort of rebuilding as of late, like we mentioned at the end of that last segment, but it seems in these last couple of games, they really haven't done any of that. They've kind of strayed away from that, and the Red Wings actually look
like a decent hockey team right now. What's going on with that?
Well, the younger players are definitely showing that they're learning throughout the season, and I would say, yeah, it sucks that we're winning now. I would rather this happened earlier in the year. But the fact is, and I know we're gonna get into Larkin and Double A in a little bit, but you've seen a lot of really good play from these young kids, and after the whole loss of Nyquist and Jensen and some of the real subpar efforts that they put in after the trade deadline, they've definitely been playing with a lot of heart, and it's good to see. It's really good to see that they're, even though it's hurting their lottery odds right now, they definitely have been playing really well, and I think it's just a mixture of the leadership in the room from guys like Larkin, and having some strong leadership from probably guys like Cronwall and those guys, the veterans that aren't going to let these, the rest of the team just kind of pack it in. And you've seen a lot of other teams that have pretty much packed it in, that are out, and the Wings aren't doing that. So as much as we'd like to see that they're going to stay within the top 3 spots maybe in that lottery, the odds are what they are, and I don't know. I'm not going to root for them to lose. I actually went to the New Jersey game. I was there in person. I was telling you about that. I actually got to meet Darren McCarty again. Got a little selfie with him, which was pretty cool. And it's fun to watch your team win, man. So, I mean, sitting in those seats, paying $28 for 2 IPAs, I'm not about to cheer for them to lose, So it's we'll see what happens at the lottery, but for now, I mean, the kids are playing really well. It's not a bunch of veteran guys that are scoring. It's kids. It's the guys that you want to see develop. And what you're seeing is, some kids that are really determined to finish the season on a high note going into next year. And I do think there's something to be said for some of these guys playing for jobs, I mean, you bring up Taro Hirose in here. The kid wants to produce. He wants to be on this team next year, so he's going to play his butt off. You got players that are trying to reach 30 goals, like Larkin and Double A. They're working their butt off. Double A, Bertuzzi. Those guys are playing really hard. So overall, I mean, I think you have to be enthusiastic about what you're seeing from the young players on the team.
No, yeah, absolutely. I mean, and there's a couple of players I kind of want to highlight over the past couple of games that we've seen. Like I said, the heroics we've kind of seen from Hirose in his first 6 NHL games he's played. He had at one point he had 5 points through 5 games. He had an assist in every single game that he had played in. Unfortunately, that streak did come to an end in his 6th game against New Jersey. But I mean, that was such an exciting thing to watch. Still, that point streak, and for him to be able to find a role like that so early in the team, and he played really well. This is someone who had a spectacular career at Michigan State, went undrafted. So it's one of those things you're always kind of skeptical about some of the undrafted kids. The Ryan Kuffner hasn't really, that the other kid that the Red Wings signed hasn't really done much of anything. But I mean, Hirose's made some pretty instant impact. Most of his assists have been the primary assist. And if not, he's still making really good passes, making strong plays. He looked really strong in that overtime game against Buffalo the other night. So it's just good hockey. You like to see it. It's, he's potentially a guy who could make the roster next season. So it's definitely kind of cool to see guys like that. We've seen with some injuries towards the end of the year as well. We saw Chelios' son get called up to the main roster. Who is that? That's Jake Chelios. Yeah. So
yeah, but I think at some point they're just kind of giving guys like, it's kind of like, hey, you guys have worked your butt off. We've got some injuries. I mean, if this was truly about like in that kind of situation, like they called up Blashill at one point too. He played in a couple of games. So at that point, it's almost like they're rewarding some of the guys, in Grand Rapids, because if it was truly about like, oh, we want to get a look, and because Jake Chelios is like 28, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So he's more of just an AHL guy.
Yeah,
but still,
they're bringing guys up. McElrath. some physical. They wanted to bring some guys up here to play a little bit more physical. They just as easily could have brought up Chalowski, but they want to keep him down there and keep progressing, and they're not going to learn anything new about Chalowski in the next 4 games that they don't already know about him. So I get it. I mean, this is the time of year where you kind of should be doing what they're doing, and they just still happen to be winning, which is pretty amazing. They're throwing, they're just pretty much throwing stuff at the wall right now with some of these call-ups, and the young kids are just producing.
Yeah. And it's just so nice to see. I mean, it's definitely just, it's just a breath of fresh air almost. I mean, because you've seen guys just sort of that youth, Madison Bowie, not much of an impact on defense, but he has 4 points in 13 games. You got a guy like Jonathan Erickson who's played 52 games in the main roster this season, only has 5 points. So, it's one of those things where if a guy like, sure, they play in different positions, but if Taro Hirose can score 5 points in 6 games, then, it's just nice to see some of these guys, some of these younger guys come in and make an impact. And
one of those goals Bowie fed it right to Larkin right through the slot, man, and I think Larkin looked right at him. He's like, that was a hell of a pass.
Yeah,
so he fed it right to him. So I mean, I don't know that Bowie's anything more than a number 5 defenseman on a good NHL team, but you know what? I already like him better than Erickson. So
yeah, exactly. So it's like, it's like I said, the youth it's a breath of fresh air, like you've said. You brought up Tyler Bertuzzi, but yeah, him and Mantha have been so well, have played so well these last couple of games. I think both Bertuzzi and Mantha have 7 points in their last 5 games, if I'm not mistaken. Bertuzzi actually has 7 over his last 3, which is even more impressive. He had 2 3-point games over his last 2 games. So now both Mantha and Bertuzzi are just 1 goal shy of 20 goals. We saw Larkin and Athanasiou score their 30th goal just a couple games ago. So that's really exciting. You said you were at the New Jersey game, and you were kind of telling me earlier about how awesome it was to see Andreas Athanasiou's 30th goal. I mean, just how well that was.
Oh man, it's one thing to see him on TV, but I mean, I've been to Wings training camp this past year, and they're playing hard, but it's obviously not NHL games. He got sprung loose, by I forget who it was that made that pass to him, that who had the assist on his goal. Let's look really quick, because this was a cool play that he had when he scored that goal. Trying to look it up really quick and see if we can find out who assisted on his goal. But basically the play kind of came out of nowhere, which is a lot of times what happens with him. Like, just out of nowhere, he'll just get sprung loose and just fly like getting shot out of a cannon. And that's pretty much what happened, man. Like he got a really good pass from somebody, and I think it was from Ferk. It was either Ferk or DeKaiser. Yeah, man, and he just went right through like 3 players, and it was kind of an odd angle. I mean, that he was shooting at. He scored on the far side, and man, just like totally picked the pocket. I think it was upper right corner of the net, far side. Just a beautiful goal, man. And it's like, it's plays like that where it's like, dude, yeah, they're trying him out at center, but I mean, just as a pure goal scorer, I mean, it's not just the speed. I mean, I've heard a lot about, don't be so enthralled by his speed, because when he gets older, like that speed's not going to be there. I'm like, Darren Helm has speed. Okay. Matthew Dandino on the Wings had speed. There's a lot of guys in the league that have speed, not necessarily Larkin or AA speed or McDavid speed, but pretty darn close to it, and don't have the finish like those guys do. That's why they're not star players. Athanasiou has the tools to be a star player. So if he can continue to get better the way that Larkin has, and round out the rest of his game and make, as a center, you have to be a 2-way player. You can't afford to be playing first, second line minutes as a center and be a one-trick pony. And I think that if he continues to, be committed to rounding out the rest of his game, I think you've got your number 1, number 2 center possibly. or one hell of a winger. So, I mean, and that's been exciting. I don't know if you want to transition into that at all, but I mean, the 30-goal seasons from both of those guys. I mean, we haven't had 30-goal scores, let alone two 30-goal scores, since '09, the '09 run when we had Hossa on the team.
Yep, yeah, it's been a decade since we've seen 30-goal score, and and that's just really exciting. We had, I think it was 4 guys in 2008, 2009 who it was Pavel Datsyuk, Henrik Zetterberg, Johan Franzen, and Marian Hossa, I believe, were the 4 who had the 30-goal mark in the 2008-2009 season. But and if Larkin was the first to hit it, which was really exciting. We all kind of expected him to be the first to sort of hit that. I know Athanasiou kind of was like ran on his tails. I think they both had like 29 or something like that going into that game. But for Larkin, it's really cool. I know he had an interview with Helen St. James. If you guys want to check it out, it's on our website, which is michigansportsentertainment.com. So if you guys want to check out the article, but I mean, Larkin even said in the interview that through contract negotiations with the team and just with people in general, I mean, people on the Red Wings even said that he wasn't a goal scorer, and for him to finally get through and score 30 goals, and I mean, that's a pretty big milestone. Jeff Blashill said this is a kind of type of kid where who doesn't really have a ceiling, and I completely agree. His potential still just at age 22 is through the roof. I mean, just his leadership and his ability to, not only, become a playmaker like we've seen in past years, but, him able now to finally score goals. I mean, he's just one of those guys who never stops improving his game. And, he's shown that he can, step up in the right time. And really at 23, 22, almost 23 years old, there's not really anyone else I'd want to see as a captain for the Red Wings. I mean, it's a perfect fit. This is a kid who has a can't stop, won't stop mentality. He's literally just the best candidate for the job. I mean, really, when you look at it, and it was really nice to see Anthony Mantha score 30 goals too. I mean, the fact that we had a multi 30-goal scorer again, which is, since in over a decade, was really cool to at least have 2 players do it now. I mean, that's got to say something pretty loudly for some of the future of the Detroit Red Wings, especially now that you're kind of, like you said earlier, you're almost cementing that the top 2 centers there, if they decide to keep Athanasiou at center. But it's just an exciting time, especially in the rebuild. Larkin said it felt pretty good in a season which not much has felt great. That's pretty much a direct quote from Larkin. But I mean, I love how he still remains positive, and the season hasn't really looked too good, but like I said, overall, I mean, there's still a lot of positives to take out from the season, and and that's one of the best things about the rebuild is the fact that you get to see the progression and the growth of some of these guys who, of the youth on this hockey team. We got to see a lot of really cool stuff this season. We got to see, Zadina play up on the main roster, which was awesome. And there's just been, and we saw like Cholowski develop so well on the main roster as well as Michael Rasmussen. So there's still a lot to look forward to. The season's coming to a close. I think they only have like 4 games to wrap up the season at the time of recording.
Yeah,
but
3 at home, 1 on the road.
Yeah. So, it's one of those things where, the season's coming to an end, but, it's still an exciting time. You're looking forward to, kind of the draft and coming up and stuff like that, which will be nice because they'll have a high draft pick. But, it's one of those things where, it's just exciting to see. And I think, Dylan Larkin's kind of, overcome some of the odds and kind of silenced a lot of his doubters and kind of basically said, hey, I am a goal scorer.
He said, screw is what he said.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, and I'm going to say something that's probably going to be a little bit controversial. I don't know if it's like crazy controversial, but I think if you look at the last few captains the Red Wings have had, so when Yzerman retired, I think it was pretty obvious it was going to be Lidstrom. When Lidstrom retired, it's pretty obvious it's going to be Zetterberg. And how cool is it that now you're gone, and we pretty much all assumed that the captain of the Red Wings was going to be Larkin, especially halfway through the season, right? Because there was some talk about, they're probably going to give it to Abdelkader, or it might be Nielsen, no, the Red Wings don't like to do that. Like they typically they want someone in that role that's either been there for a long time or will be here for a long time. And how cool is it that it's painfully obvious? It's painfully obvious, excuse me, that Larkin is the captain of this team. And I think honestly, I think he's probably more ready to be the captain now at 22 than Yzerman was when he was made the captain in his early 20s. I'm not saying that he's going to be a better captain. I'm not saying that at the end of their careers he's going to be considered a better captain or better leader. I'm not saying that whatsoever, because I lived through the whole Yzerman from the time he was drafted to the time he retired. I saw every season he played. And Yzerman's next to Lidstrom, my favorite Red Wing ever. But this kid, he's had a lot of help that I don't think Yzerman had when Yzerman was coming up. He's got guys like Cronwall. He's got guys like Zetterberg that helped him out, that are still there helping out, even though he's not on the ice anymore. He's got a support system that I don't think Yzerman had when he got drafted. And when Yzerman became the captain, he was definitely the best player on the team. But it's obvious when you listen to Larkin talk, when you see how he plays on the ice, when you see how much he's put into getting better. Like you wrote about, people were doubting that he really was a goal scorer. And he worked extra, stayed later at practices, just shooting the puck and getting better. That's what you want to see out of your captain. And he's just going to get better and better. So I really think that, it's probably more obvious at 22 years of age that Larkin should be and is the captain of this team than it was when Yzerman became the captain, because there was a lot of people that were like, oh, can you really, Jacques Lemaire kind of went on a limb and made him the captain back in the early 80s. A lot of people were surprised by that because Yzerman was just a kid, Mm-hmm. So a lot of people were surprised and wondered if it was a good idea. And you listen to Don McLean, I think is his name, on Sportsnet. He was just talking the other day about how Yzerman, was really he was an okay captain up until, some of the veteran guys were brought into the Red Wings, and he just totally blossomed and became one of the best captains ever, Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it's comforting to know that it looks like we have our number one center and centerpiece to the rebuild in Larkin. Not he's the leader, but he's probably a number two center. No, it looks to me, and we went through the list, and we should do this really quick. Looked at the 2014 draft, and we only found two players, maybe three, that you would have said I would have still taken them ahead of Larkin, possibly. And one guy that's probably ahead of him in his development that was drafted after. So Aaron Ekblad was drafted number one. And, it's kind of hard to argue at the time. Florida took the easily the best defenseman available in that draft and their number one defenseman. So you can't really fault Florida for doing that. But then the next guy down that's even close to Larkin, you got Draisaitl in Edmonton, who's either playing on a line with McDavid or playing second line center against second line or third line talent against, lesser competition in a lot of cases. William Nylander in Toronto, who went through a lengthy contract holdout, who is, still not quite where people think he's going to be potential wise. And there's some other players that are pretty good in that area. But then you go all the way down, and the next player that you would say, is the best out of those guys so far is Dylan Larkin. As far as what they've meant to their team, the production, the potential, the ceiling. Larkin, like you said, Blashill was saying, we don't know what his ceiling is right now. He continues to get better. The only other guy on that first round that you could say maybe you take over Larkin at this point is Pasternak from Boston.
Yeah. But I mean, like, you can go through the list, and like you said, I mean, is there anybody's particularly, like, we would have, at this point, we would have taken this person over Larkin? I mean, if we look at it, would you have taken Aaron Ekblad over Larkin? Like, currently?
Not right now.
Not right now. No, I really wouldn't. Just given his position, you know, I mean, like I said, one of the players we talked about in the conversation, Leon Draisaitl. It's a possibility, but again, Leon Draisaitl, he has a better offense around him. He's pretty much playing with one of the best players in the NHL in Connor McDavid, which Dylan Larkin does not have a Connor McDavid on his team. So he's almost second fiddle to Connor McDavid on that team.
He's got 100 more points in his career right now.
Yeah. So,
but I also think, I mean, with Draisaitl, you know, Draisaitl, just looking at how many seasons he's played, Draisaitl's played one more season than Larkin did.
Mm-hmm.
So, and now he only put up 9 points in the 37 games that he played, but you know, it's another year of experience. So he's a little bit ahead of him in his development. You know, it's kind of hard to argue. I mean, we're talking about a guy that's got 47 goals right now.
Yeah.
He's got 101 points. At this point, he is the better offensive player. But, you know,
is he a better leader, though? Do you get the leadership aspect out of it? I mean,
I don't know enough about Draisaitl.
Yeah, so if you're saying, who would you rather have a captain of your hockey team? Would you rather have a Connor McDavid or a Leon Draisaitl?
Oh, Connor McDavid.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. So that's where it comes in the factor. You're saying, at what level is Leon Draisaitl compared to Dylan Larkin in that sense, and the fact that Dylan Larkin is more of a leader than Leon Draisaitl is. And sure, you know, leadership doesn't really make, I mean, but it really does. I mean, honestly, like I think it's a really important aspect.
I think we would be, I would think that some of the fact that he's a hometown kid, he played at Michigan, there's definitely some home bias going into this.
Sure.
I mean, I think you have to admit that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I guess what we're saying is, say we don't get Jack Hughes, which is more likely that we don't than we do. Okay. I don't think if people want Jack Hughes, which they do, why do you want Jack Hughes? Number one, he's the best player in this draft. Number two, he may be a generational talent. I don't know for sure, but he's definitely, you know, in that same discussion that you heard when you heard about guys like Austin Matthews. I don't know about Connor McDavid, but you know, he's in that discussion, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's at least in that discussion. And the other reason is bona fide number one center. Okay.
Yeah.
So if Larkin's our number one center, you know, the whole issue of this rebuild is, you know, do we have our number one center? Do you have the goalie of the future? Do you have a number one defenseman? Well, if Larkin is at number one center, well, that takes a big load off of everyone's shoulders rebuilding this team, because it's not like you're not going to draft Hughes if he's available. But what it does say is, okay, you know, we didn't get Jack Hughes. We're going to get, if they get Kakko, awesome. If you don't get either of those guys, now the discussion is, well, we don't need to reach for one of these other centers. You know, if we don't think that one of these centers is better than potentially the defenseman that could be our number one defenseman, do we take Bowen Byram? Right? Like, we're not searching for our number one center anymore, is what I'm saying.
No, I completely understand.
We'll take them. We'll take one.
Yeah, we'll take it.
But if Larkin is our number one center, and the kid continues to get better as a playmaker, continues to get better with staying out of the box and being more positionally sound, and he will, as he gets more experience, then you've resolved one huge piece of the puzzle in this rebuild, and that's so important.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and Dylan Larkin just serves, you know, like you said, such a good role in you know, in their rebuild, and you know, and that's an interesting conversation. I mean, obviously, yeah, if Jack Hughes is on the board, then obviously you take him, and you know, you might get the argument of the whole thing that's going on in Toronto, whether, you know, Austin Matthews got put down in the second line center over John Tavares. Yeah, if I'm not mistaken.
Would love to have that problem. I'd love to have Larkin and Jack Hughes
compete for that first center spot. Like, are you kidding me? Like,
no problem. If you can do it, if you can get to, like, and I'm going to clarify, if the Red Wings get the first pick, and I've had some luck in my tankathons where they've gotten the number one pick. I'm sure everybody has. After you've run it 30, 40 times, you're bound to get Jack Hughes at least once or twice, right?
Yeah.
So you get Jack Hughes, you're taking Jack Hughes. It's not. Yeah, this is not a discussion about, oh, we already got our number one center, so let's just take Kakko instead, or let's take Podkolzin, or let's take Byram. No. If you get the number one pick, your ass is taking Jack Hughes, and you're walking up to that. You're sprinting up to that. You're sprinting up to the podium.
Yeah.
And you don't let Ken Holland say anything else other than USA development team, Jack Hughes. That's all. That's all you got to do. Give him the jersey. With, they're going to have to find another number, because I don't know if you can really give them 19, right? Because they always give people the jersey with the number on the back of the draft year. So I think they'd have to find a way around that, don't you think?
They have to, but
they're going to have to figure something out. But regardless, no, you know what they're going to do? They'll make up for it, because they're going to hire Steve Yzerman.
Right, yeah. And
Steve Yzerman will hand him the jersey.
How great would that be if Yzerman it's almost like a passing of the torch.
No, and what'll be even better is, so you're going to have Ken Holland walk up to the podium with Steve Yzerman, and Holland's about to take the microphone and he's about to announce it, and Steve will look at Holland and put his hand up and say, I got this, Kenny. Give me the jersey. Give me the damn hat. Go sit down. Let me take care of this. This is my team. Right.
Yeah.
So now I'm going to wake up. Okay.
Right, yeah.
Now I'm going to wake up. But the point is, if you get a chance to take Jack Hughes, you're going to take Jack Hughes.
Yeah, exactly. From the second they're like, and the Red Wings are on the clock, you're at number one, you're like, boom, okay, the pick is in.
Don't even give Ken Holland a chance to trade.
I was going to say, he won't. We can only hope, but there's absolutely no chance he passes him up there. And you've been more lucky in your Tankathon picks. For whatever reason, whenever I run Tankathon, it takes me like 7 or 8 refreshes of the draft in order to get a chance at Jack Hughes, which is frightening for me.
I got him twice in a row, and then I got
got him twice in a row
time.
Today. Yeah, so we can only hope the Red Wings roll like we do.
Call me up.
I was going to say, yeah.
When they do the draft, when they do the lottery on April 9th, that I need to go there.
Yeah, you need to go. You need to go. You need to go represent the Red Wings of the podcast and go up there and spin the little
Chris Draper take a walk.
Exactly. You need to get the little bingo spinner out and the lottery spinner and get that going because we need your luck on the Tankathon rolls there for the Red Wings, because how cool would that be? But really, I mean, the Red Wings do have so many options, and that's been one of the most exciting things, that we've had to, kind of experience, is the fact that, over these last couple of years, as unfortunate as it's been that the Red Wings haven't been, contenders for anything and they've been kind of rebuilding, it's been super exciting to kind of talk about the draft and some of their options. And, because obviously getting a guy like Dylan Larkin at 15 is absolutely fantastic. And there are guys, that are, it happens. There's swing and a miss type prospects. You're like, wow, this guy really didn't turn out how we wanted him to. But, it's one of those things where I think this is kind of a different, it's a different draft year. And, we've heard a lot of good things about some of the guys, especially Jack Hughes. I mean, I just think there's a lot of different options. I know it could definitely be stressful, especially kind of knowing with all the different centers you've got. Like who you got? You have like
Cousins,
Kirby Doc, and Dylan Cousins, and
Zegras, which is moving up a lot of people's. Turcotte. So there's definitely a lot of center depth in this upper half of the draft. Jack Hughes is obviously the first. But the thing is, just because we move down, like if we don't get the number 1 or 2 pick, doesn't mean that we're not going to get a really good player. I mean, Steve Yzerman was the number 4 pick in 1983. The guy that was drafted, Lawton, the draft number 1, didn't turn out to do much of anything. Okay. And then Detroit had a number 1 pick years after Yzerman was already on the team. I think it was Joe Murphy or something. And that guy didn't really pan out. I mean, he had a decent career, but he never was anything close to what he should have been as a number 1 pick. So our franchise player for 20 years was a number 4 pick. So it doesn't mean that you're, when you get the first or second overall pick, that you're guaranteed a superstar player. And it doesn't mean that if you get the 4th pick or lower, that you're going to get a bum. I mean, we are going to find a very good player in this draft. I think what's going to happen, though, is if you don't get Hughes or Kako, it's going to be at least 2 years before you see any of the other guys, especially if it's a defenseman. So, if it's Bowen Byram, I mean, don't count on seeing Bowen Byram until the 22 season. It's just not going to happen.
Absolutely.
So in terms of the rebuild, this is why what I was saying last episode is so important for whether it's Holland or eventually Steve Yzerman, whoever's the GM or runs this team. We're going to have to find other ways to make this team better other than just the upper half of the draft. They're going to have to get lucky with some of these second and third rounders. They're going to have to, try to see what they can do on the free agent market to bring a really talented guy in here that's going to make other players better. Not just a fill the gap type player, but like truly a look. If you can get a Carlson in here, then absolutely go for it. We talked about that last time. So but trades, like at some point we got to make a damn trade that is going to bring some talent into this team. You don't want to waste the years that you got with AA and Athanasiou or Athanasiou and Larkin.
Yeah.
At this young age, not making a ton of money yet, and just be waiting for everybody else to get here. I mean, because even when they get here, you saw Zadina. Zadina had, 9 games and scored 1 goal and 2 assists, right?
Yeah.
The team was playing like crap when he was up here.
Yeah, for sure. Because it was kind of a bad time for him to be up. Because imagine if he was up right now with the way they're playing. Who could have?
Taro Hirose's got 5 points in 6 games. You're telling me that Taro Hirose's a better prospect than Zadina because he got 5 points in 6 games and Zadina got 3 and 9? No, that's not at all what I'm saying. But what I am saying though is they may have found a guy in Hirose that could be like a third line playmaking player.
Yeah.
He's not that fast. He's not like the biggest guy, but if he's going to be a playmaker on your third line and he's going to make that third line really, really good or help make that third line really, really good, that's what you need. They need to keep hitting on some of these other moves other than what they get in the lottery, because if they don't, then we're going to be Edmonton and Buffalo and all these other teams in Ottawa, all these other teams that are struggling to get out of their rebuild, because you can't do it all in the first round. They've got to make some moves. They got to get creative. So we'll see this summer what they do. I know there's been chatter about possibly Detroit being one of the teams that might do an offer sheet. I'm not convinced that that's going to happen, but if it makes sense, sure, do it.
Yeah. No, I mean, I completely agree with what you're saying there, because the Red Wings have they've been pretty smart with their last couple of picks. I mean, we've seen, or at least last year with some of their picks. I mean, Ken Holland really hit it out of the park last year, especially with the grabbing a guy like Joe Veleno at 30.
I'm excited to see what that kid's
I'm so excited to see Veleno. If you guys haven't watched or at least haven't even followed Joe Veleno, I mean, I think he's in contention now for most valuable player in whatever league he's in. I think it's
Quebec Major Junior League.
Yeah, he's in QMJHL. But I mean, he's a spectacular. And there's a couple other guys I actually want to talk about. But if you haven't seen, or if you haven't heard of anything that Joe Veleno's doing over in Quinneville, I mean, is that right? It's Drummondville. Sorry, I'm thinking of something completely different. But with the Voltigeurs, I mean, he's he's played so well. I think he has over 100 points now in the season.
104 points, 42
104
goals,
points,
62 assists in 59 games. Last year, 64 games he played, and he had 31 points for St. John and 48 for Drummondville. So that's 79 points.
Yeah,
79 points in 64 games, and he's got 104 points in 59 games. So I'd say he's progressed.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, you've seen spectacular progression there from him, and that's super exciting. I know a lot of people were kind of iffy about the Veleno pick because
he's not a goal scorer.
He's
right?
not. Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's not a goal scorer. Or another thing was he wasn't a defenseman. I remember so many people were like, "Oh, why didn't they take a defenseman?" They ended up taking Zadina over Quinn Hughes, which, by the way, Quinn Hughes made his debut for Vancouver the other day, which was really cool. If you guys hadn't seen that, I was a really big fan of Quinn Hughes. He's a Michigan guy, so
he's going to be really good, man.
Yeah, he's going to be really good.
But can you argue about? I mean, really,
Zadina over, but it's. Like I said, it's 6 of 1. Again, I'm it's one of those things where I'm really happy.
I'm not second guessing it at all.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not one of those people who's second guessing it. As much as I really do like Quinn Hughes as a prospect, and it would be awesome to see him in a Red Wings uniform. It's one of those things where I'm still super happy with what they got as Zadina. It was one of those value picks where it was like, I mean, come on, Zadina was a top 3 pick, and he ended up falling to 6. I mean, anyone in their right mind. I mean, so just think about it. I mean, if the Red Wings were picking at 6 again this year, and then you had a guy like, I'm not comparing him to Jack Hughes, but so let's say Capo Caco falls to 6 and the Red Wings have a chance to grab him. Are you kidding me? Of course you're grabbing Capo Caco.
How do you feel about a third? How would you feel about a third line in a couple years of a developed Joe Veleno, Taro Hirose, and Michael Rasmussen?
That just sound. I mean,
on your third line,
yeah. That's third line. That's it's ridiculous. I mean, that's the thing.
Assuming Double A is still number 2.
Yeah, it's still that number 2 center.
And they pick up, whoever they pick up in this year's draft. Say it's. I'm just assuming. Let's just assuming it's Bowen Byram. Okay. Because I'm convinced at this point that if they don't get Caco or Hughes, that it's looking more and more like Bowen Byram might be the smartest pick for them.
Yeah. No, I mean it makes the most sense.
He's that much better than every other defenseman in the draft right now. I'm not saying he's the third best player in the draft. A lot of people like Podkolzin there, but I mean, at that point it's kind of like, is Podkolzin that much better as a winger than Bowen Byram would be as a defenseman?
Yeah,
especially in a team that needs to rebuild that defense. Mm-hmm. If you're saying best player available and they're basically on equal footing, now you got to look at what is really going to win you championships. Centers, defense, goalie. Those are the 3 positions you have to win championships. So we've already got Zadina. I mean, we've already spent picks in the last so many years on some guys that could either play center or wing. So I kind of feel like this is the year, if they don't get number 1 or 2, that you're going to see that if it's not Bowen Byram, then I think they're going after one of those other centers. But I really think if it's not Caco or Hughes, I think it's Byram. That's what I think is going to happen.
No, I mean, that sounds really good. And, we've kind of changed our opinion in the past couple weeks. In the past couple episodes we've seen, we were more inclined to pick a center. But now that, but that was back when we were a little bit unsure about how Athanasiou was playing at center. He's kind of, defined that role. And we've kind of looked at things and seen, Veleno's development over in Drummondville. And he's a possibility in the main roster next year. So as much as a center, like you were saying, picking probably the best defenseman in the draft over, maybe the second or third best center in the draft would, is more of a smart pick there. You mentioned goaltender. There was actually one more prospect I wanted to talk about because we did talk about Joe Veleno. But if you guys haven't heard about Philip Larkin, he was the Red Wings draft pick. He was a goalie draft pick from, I believe, 2017, if I'm not mistaken. I want to confirm that first, but But I mean, he has been absolutely spectacular. He's been playing at the University of Denver. I believe he was a 2017 draft pick. Yeah, 2017 or no, 2016. Excuse me. Yeah, he was the 6th round pick in 2016. Which a lot of people
already
are
looks like the best goalie in our system.
Yeah, he already looks like the best goalie in our system. He's had just at the University of Denver this season. He's had 4 shutouts. 2 of them have come over his last 2 games. And he just looks really good. I mean, he has a .935 save percentage. His goals allowed average is 1.87 this season.
What I really like
with
about
Denver.
I mean, honestly, if you think about it, the way that goalies are drafted today, I'm almost hesitant to draft a goalie other than in Europe, where you've got more time for them to stay over there and develop. But I'm almost inclined to not draft a goalie unless they're going to college, because you've got that 4 years of guaranteed development. I mean, they can stay in college for 4 years. You don't have to worry about it. Mm-hmm. I mean, Larson looks, from what I've heard, I mean, I like I said, I've never seen him play games. So, but it's kind of like, I'm not like a goalie coach or anything. So what the hell am I looking at? Right. I mean, so from what everyone says, the kid seems to really be the real deal. I mean, you've got Petruzzelli, but I think you're going to see him starting pretty much most games next year, because the kid that was the starter was like the best goalie in one of the best goalies in the whole league or something like that. Mm-hmm. So unfortunately, he's kind of second fiddle to him, but he's playing a lot more games this year than he did last year. But they've got those 2 guys, and then the guy that they drafted in the 2nd or 3rd round from Sweden last year. It was the Håkan Andersson pick, I think, the guy that Andersson wanted. Kind of hard to argue with that guy's track record, right?
Yeah. So I mean, like I said, I mean, there's some really good prospects that to be excited about for the Red Wings. And it's kind of hard. I know it's a little bit hard to watch these guys, but seriously, do yourselves a favor and just go on social media, follow some. You don't even really have to follow that many insiders or anything. Follow Dana Wakiji, Helen St. James from the Free Press. Dana Wakiji's she's an editor at DetroitRedWings.com. But they give all sorts of give all sorts of updates and stuff like that on prospects and stuff like that.
If you really want to know though what's going on with the prospects, my suggestion would be to subscribe to The Athletic, because that's where you're going to hear from guys like Max Boltman and gotta forget the guy's name, but they've got several guys on there that they really get, like, Craig Custance. They get really deep into what's going on with the Red Wings prospects, and you'll learn a lot from those guys. I mean, they'll do deep dives into, like, hey, what's the Red Wings goaltending future look like, and they'll have write-ups on each of the guys that are really considered to be the potential goalies of the future. They've done this for guys like gosh, I can't remember the guy's name off the top of my head, but even some guys that you haven't heard much about, like Chase Pearson or some of these other guys that they've drafted as far back as like 3-4 years ago. So I would definitely take advantage of the sales and stuff that they have for their subscriptions, because it's not a lot of money and it's you get a lot of value. So it's definitely worth checking out. I mean, definitely, Helene St. James does some stuff, and you'll have some of the other ones do some things too. Kevin Allen will do some things, but definitely check out the guys from The Athletic, because if you're really into like what our prospects are doing, those guys like consistently report on it.
Yeah, so I mean, guys, do yourselves a favor. Check out, if you guys are really into some prospects. Honestly, just take a look at them. Like you said, look at The Athletic. Just if anything, if you don't really want to do that, like I said, just look on Twitter. There's a lot of good resources where you guys, can follow the Red Wings, especially some of the prospects as well. Social media is such a great ability to be able to follow some of these guys. But if you guys are really interested, we'll potentially run down some prospects later in the year on an episode of the podcast, if that's something you guys are interested in. But be sure to check that out on Twitter. And so those are just some of the interesting things. It's always nice to hear all the stuff that's really positive about the future for the Red Wings, because as much as it's tough to kind of look towards the future and be like, oh yeah, it's as much as you want to win now, it's just exciting. It gets you, it gets the adrenaline running, and you can only be excited for what's ahead. The rebuild has moved along so well, in my opinion, and and that's another thing we're going to kind of segment into in a little bit. But one of the things, we wanted to talk about on the podcast, I'm sure you guys have heard of it, and and there's been a lot of kind of mixed reactions to it. But Jeff Blashill is reportedly getting a 2-year extension. So I've seen a lot of, like I said, I've seen a lot of mixed reviews. But Jay, like, what are some of your thoughts on the Blashill extension there?
I mean, I get it. I'm not really a Jeff Blashill, fan at this point. And I'm not gonna rehash everything I said in the last couple episodes. I mean, I think the guy has got the team working hard, and it's good to see. Obviously, they respect him. I think getting through this stage of the rebuild, I think it's fine right now. I mean, I don't know. I don't know really what the other option was, I mean, I don't think you're going to get a guy like John Quenneville to come to a rebuilding team right now,
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I don't, if you're going to bring in McClellan, the guy that used to be here with Babcock, and the guy that, got pretty close to winning a cup with San Jose, and I always liked McClellan a lot. I think he's a really good coach, and I think he'd do really well here. But I don't really know who else there is. I mean, do you want to take a chance with another AHL guy at this point? You already got one, and a guy that was a perennial winner in the AHL. He's won everywhere else he's been. He's won championships in other leagues. So it's not like the guy can't coach. I don't know if he's going to be the guy that's going to lead this team into a long playoff run, which is why I think they only signed him to a 2-year extension, because I think the Wings are really intent on making the playoffs within these next 2 years. I think they kind of have to say that. So I'm glad it was only 2. I don't really see too many teams signing a coach to a 1-year extension at this point. So I think if you really are against this, I don't blame you. Okay. But don't get caught up in, oh my God, another 2 years, because if this team is in the same spot next year, he's getting canned.
Yeah.
I'm telling you right now, even if they should be like not good the next year, like the Ilitch family and Ken Holland and them, if you hear what they've been saying, they don't want to be impatient. Like, they want to do this the right way. But Ken Holland truly feels that this team is better than what it is. Okay. The guy is somewhat delusional. Okay. He thinks that a team that still has an aging defense like they have, and their downright refusal to throw both Cholowski and Hronek into the lineup at the same time is setting back the development of this defense. It is. And you continue to have this old defense in there, and they're not making any moves to improve it, moves to improve it. I don't see this team really being much better next year than it has been this year, save for the fact that you've got some young kids that are going to continue to try and push it in that direction. I don't think Blashill's going to be the coach of this team after next year if this team isn't really close to making the playoffs. If this team is like, they miss it by like, a handful of points, I think he'll be back. Unless Steve Yzerman gets hired, takes over the team, and decides he wants his own guy in here. But if they barely miss next year, he's coming back for year 2. Don't even doubt it. Okay. But if this team is like where we are right now, where we're talking about, are we going to, why do we keep winning games we should be losing to get the number 1 pick? Because there's a really, really good kid in that next draft. He gone.
Yeah.
I think really like the Wings organization, upper management expects this team to be significantly better next year than they are. Might not be, better like, we want it to be like, hey, we're actually not just making the playoffs, but we actually like are contending to like, have a run, right?
Mm-hmm.
If they don't at least get in the playoffs or really, really close to it, I don't think Blashill's coming back.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. It's one of those things where I think this 2-year deal is sort of like next year is a make or break deal, a make or break year, I should say. And I don't really understand the expectation of being a playoff team next year. I just really don't. I don't really think there's anything that necessarily screams to me that's like, oh yeah, this team's a playoff team next year, because really the defense isn't solidified. We have subpar goaltender play, because I really don't think, even though we just gave Howard that extension, I don't really think Howard and Bernier are the answers next year. I mean, obviously, we've seen teams like the Sharks get by with a good, with a subpar goaltending crew. Who is it? Martin and Aaron Dell over there are, not very good by any means, and they're still a playoff team. But regardless, I just don't really think the defense is there either. I mean, there's nothing really that says there's not really a defenseman who I'm necessarily saying, unless the Red Wings make some splash moves and end up getting a guy like Trouba or Carlson or something like that. I just don't see it. I really don't. There's nothing really that's like
division, dude.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, look at the Atlantic Division.
These other teams aren't waiting for us to get better. I mean, Tampa Bay, regardless if they have to lose a guy because of their contracts, they're still going to be dominant. Yeah. Toronto's going to continue to get better. Boston is not going to get worse. They're going to continue to be really good. Florida,
Montreal's been okay this season.
Yeah, Montreal, I think they're kind of a fraud in my opinion. I mean, a lot of it is being held up still by Carey Price. Yeah. But, really, Florida's getting better. Buffalo's going to continue to get better. They don't really have that winning culture yet. They really are struggling in that sense. But I mean, it's kind of hard to argue. They've got their number one. They're further ahead in their rebuild as far as the pieces that you need than we are. And I don't mean that to say like I'd rather have Eichel than Larkin or anything like that. What I'm saying is you got the number one center in Eichel. You've got your number one defenseman in Rasmus Dahlin. Their goaltending has been very strong this year. So they've already got like the three. I mean, goaltender of the future, I don't know. I mean, but was it Hutton, the guy that they got from St. Louis? Yeah, he's been playing really good. He's like a veteran goalie, right?
Mm-hmm. He's older,
but I mean, but that team is going to continue to get better. Yeah. So the Wings are going to have a really tough time. Yeah, making the playoffs next year, unless they can sneak into a wild card position somehow, because they ain't going to make it in the top 3 in our division next year with this team, especially with pretty much contract-wise the same defense they have right now. It's not going to be any different. Yeah,
it's not going to be any different.
You're going to have, maybe you won't have Cronwall, but I'm going to be honest with you. I won't be surprised if they leave Cholowski in Grand Rapids next year for a while to start the year. I don't know that he's on this team to start the year. He might be a call up. He might be an injury call up, or he might be like kind of like what happened this year, where he starts the year in Grand Rapids, but they bring him up, But who are you gonna like? De Kaiser's not going anywhere. Daly's still here. Ericsson's still here. Yeah. Hronek took Cholowski's spot. So you got Madison Bowie. Mm-hmm. Who's leaving?
Yeah, you're not really getting any.
You're not going to bring Cholowski to come up here and sit on the bench. Yeah. So I think Blashill is really like, he's one of those guys where he's been able to work with young kids well throughout his career. And I think that he has helped the development of some of these guys. I mean, I think it's kind of hard to argue with, you've got 2 guys that are now 30 goal scorers, at least one more that probably should have been, save for the injuries in Mantha, and another kid in Bertuzzi who's playing meaningful minutes that looks like a perennial 20 goal scorer and could be just a pain in the butt to play against in the playoffs whenever we get there. He has helped with the development of those guys, but I'm sorry. I think, I think he's either going to have a year next year where we're like, wow, like this team's just taken up another level, and people are going to be pretty much like, saying, you know what, maybe we were wrong. Maybe this guy really does get it. Maybe because if this team makes it in the playoffs next year, he absolutely deserved that extension.
Yeah,
because
for sure.
I don't think this team next year with this defense, I don't think they belong. I don't think they belong in that discussion.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. So I mean, if they can pull a playoff game out of, if they can pull off a playoff run with their, out of their hat or whatever, I mean, whatever. I mean, it's what it is. I don't really think. I mean, I still think that this team needs a couple more years of rebuilding. It's one of those things where I know for me it is kind of hard to watch the Red Wings sometimes, but I'm not really opposed to another year or two of a rebuild, to be completely honest.
We're far away from a tank like this. They're after this year, unless there's some major injuries, this team is not going to be this bad next year. And it's still going to be bad, but it's not going to be like cringeworthy bad every game like it's been up until this recent stretch, because they've got enough power. They've got enough guys on offense now, and two goalies that can stop the dam from breaking. They've got enough to remain competitive, but who wants to be in that middle area, right? Like, I don't want to be, just good enough to not be embarrassing, but not bad enough to get a top pick.
Yeah, no, I completely agree.
We're going to be at that point next year. If they don't do anything with this defense, I think that's where we're looking at. I think instead of being where we are today, I think you're looking more like, somewhere like around where Florida and Philly are right now.
Yeah, or like a Chicago or something like that.
Yeah, and you still have a chance of getting a high pick from there, but
you're still middle of the pack. You know what I mean? Like you're not a completely like bottom feeder team, but you're not an Ottawa Senators next year. But
they're not going to get a chance at Alexis Lafreniere, who is supposed to be just off the charts hockey sense and on offense. I mean, the kid's supposed to be just unbelievable, but you're probably not really in the discussion for a number one pick like that. Whereas this year, they truly are in the discussion of being able to land a Jack Hughes. They're bad enough to where, they've been bad enough up until this point where you can realistically think we could get that pick. Next year, I think this team is going to be better. I just don't think with that defense, Blashill is going to get enough out of this team to overcome that. And if they're better than they are now, but they're not at the level where I think Holland and the rest of the organization kind of are saying they expect them to be at, then he could go.
Yeah, no.
But Holland hired this guy. He believes that he's gotten better as a coach. I think he has in some ways. I think he's a better coach today than he was when we brought him in. But you saw, when he came onto the team, we made the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like he came in and the thing fell apart. I mean, he had some good players on that team. But
sure.
I don't know, man. What do you think? I mean, do you think this was the right call, or do you think they should have waited in the summer and maybe tried to get a Quenneville?
No, I think it's a smart pick. Because like we were saying before, there's not really a good replacement in my mind that I'm necessarily seeing. It's one of those things where Blashill can serve as a scapegoat. I mean, I don't really think the Red Wings will have any issue firing him next year if they, if they don't make the playoffs again. It's I don't again because I mean, what has he really done? I mean, they've had what, like 3 seasons of missing the playoffs, and if they miss the playoffs for a 4th straight year next year, if it's again not close, like you said, he'll be shown the door. But I think it was a good call. I don't really think going anywhere elsewhere. I'm not really a big Blashill guy. I mean, I know he has his strengths, but he also has his weaknesses. So, I'm not really a big Blashill guy, and but I still think it was the right move in terms of what they're doing. I'm not necessarily thrilled because I feel like that's one of those things. By bringing Blashill back, they're almost kind of accepting mediocrity again. That's just kind of my personal opinion on that. But, I don't really think Blashill's a guy who can bring him up to the next level. Really, he's not. I just don't really think this is a coach that wins them a playoff game, or a playoff series, I should say. He's just not. As much success he's had, in other areas, I just don't really see him being successful with this particular team. If he were to go back and take some other role in the AHL again and, work with the development on that sense, I would have no issue with that. I don't really know if he's necessarily fit to coach another NHL team. Maybe another team might find him, more well suited. But personally, I think, he could probably either take on, again, he could probably go back down to the Griffins or, take on some other role with the Red Wings or something. But
I think that this last couple weeks of the season has had more impact than we really want to give it credit for. I think now you've seen that. Now they're saying, oh well, they're playing better, and they're playing for this coach. This coach has got these guys playing competitive hockey even when they know they're out of it. That must mean he's a good coach, right? Well, not only has the winning streak or the last couple weeks contributed to probably Blashill getting an extension at this point already, and it's also contributed to us moving down the draft board. So I just hope that, with the next 4 games, that New Jersey and LA go on a winning streak here, and so does Buffalo. Because I don't want to root for us to lose, but I mean, that's the thing is I hope this last couple weeks of the team's performance is really not overblown. Like people, especially in the Wings management, they're smarter than I think anybody really wants to give them credit for. But at the end of the day, I mean, we're talking about an 82-game season, and we're just focusing on literally the last 6-7 games that they've played.
Yeah.
I mean, listen to our podcast 2 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago. I mean, there's a lot more positivity today in our discussions than there were the last 2 episodes. And that's because they've played better, which is great. But at the end of the day, man, I mean, when the season's over with, they're still going to be one of the top 5 worst teams in the league. So you're going to, extend a coach for 2 years, and, you hope that they see something that a lot of the fans don't, because what I see is a coach that, has been able to keep these guys playing competitive hockey, but at the same time, refuses to, in some cases, make any real adjustments to the way that they play the game. The breakout is still god awful. I mean, it hasn't gotten any better. I mean, there's still a lot of things in the way he approaches the game with young players. I mean, he's been forced to play guys like Larkin and Bertuzzi and Mantha a lot of minutes because there really isn't a Nyquist anymore. I mean, double A is basically getting Nyquist minutes.
Yeah. I mean, he's definitely taken on a lot of those minutes, which is good.
Holland has to be given some credit for the fact that he moved on from guys like Larkin, or not Larkin, but guys like Tatar and Nyquist. Nyquist being the obvious one because of the contract being done after this year. Tatar, I still think that was a great. I don't know how anybody can say that wasn't a great trade, but the fact that he signed that guy to a 5-year deal and then turned around and traded him the next year, that alone has netted us Joe Veleno. So we don't know what Veleno is going to be at the NHL level, but at this point, he sure looks promising as hell. So I mean, I think right now, I don't really know what choice they had.
Mm-hmm.
I think they kind of had to. I would have liked to seen them do it in the summer. I don't know that they needed to do it right now.
Yeah.
I would have liked them quietly to explore other things. And I think some people are reading into this as, well, I guess Yzerman's not coming, because why would they have signed Blashill to 2 more years if Yzerman's coming? Because now they're going to stick this guy with Yzerman. No. And even Gene Krupa from, Detroit News was tweeting about this. If Yzerman comes in and is running this team and he doesn't want Blashill here, Blashill's not going to be here.
Yeah.
I think Blashill will be here next year regardless. Obviously, they just signed him to a 2-year deal. But if Yzerman sees what he needs to see and he's been here long enough to see it, he's not going to be tied down to a guy that Ken Holland signed.
Absolutely. No, I completely agree. Yeah, so, it's definitely good to see, like you said, it's definitely been nice to kind of have a more positive episode today in terms of everything, depending on, what your thoughts are on Blashill and stuff. But definitely, the Red Wings' recent play over the past couple of weeks has been, or at least the past couple of games has been really nice to see. We'll see them sort of wrap up their season. I think they finish up their last games on the 6th against the Sabres, if I'm not mistaken. Let me see.
I don't have the date in front of me, but
it is, the
last
6th,
game,
the 6th of April. So yeah, that looks like it'll be next Saturday, I believe. So on the next episode, the season will have wrapped up by then. So we will give you guys kind of our rundown of what we thought of the season, and just some things going forward. We'll definitely kind of focus more on the draft and stuff like that going forward. So if you guys want more of some draft episodes or prospect episodes, be sure to let us know about that. Also, be sure to let us know what else you guys want us to talk about in the off season. Obviously, there's not going to be as much to talk about in terms of games played and stuff like that, but there's still plenty of things that we could come up with. If you guys have any other ideas and stuff like that, be sure, and if there's anything you guys want to hear, feel free to shoot us some stuff over there on Twitter. But I think in terms of this week's episode, we're going to wrap it up for today. I just want to thank you guys for listening. So it's been really nice, being able to kind of follow, go with you guys, and hope you guys enjoyed following us through the remainder of the season. And it's definitely been a lot of fun. But I'm telling you guys, we will bring you guys a lot of really good content during the off season. Still, there's going to be a lot of fun stuff to still talk about. But yeah, so where can they find you on Twitter, Jay?
Twitter is going to be Warm Chord Music, just WARMCHORD music. That's my Twitter handle, and that's pretty much where I'm most active talking about the Wings. So.
Yeah, and then you can find me at Chase Sussex on Twitter, which is CHASESUSSEX. And then you can also be sure to follow the podcast on Twitter, which is at Hockeytown Rundown. We tweet live games all the time. So be sure to check us out over there. We'll be posting this episode over there pretty soon. And also be sure to follow the website Michigan Sports and Entertainment for more of these podcasts. And there's also some other really good podcasts over there as well that you guys can check out in the podcast network. So be sure to follow them at Mish Sports ENT. And yes, that'll be it. We'll talk to you guys later.
Have a good one.